In this video, we will discuss data strategy to get business value of credit card data. To get business value of credit card data, we need to streamline data so that required data is available at fingertip, and we also need to create systems by which people can mine this data, analyze this data without writing code or anything, without confusion. If we can do these two things, it will lead to wider adoption of data science across level, which will mean smarter decisions and more business value for business. So now let's understand what is credit card data and how valuable it is. What you need to understand, credit card data is like a gold mine. In credit card, you do frequent interaction with the issuing bank because every time when you buy something, when you eat something, when you travel, credit card issuer gets to know. So he has frequent touch point and he can create profile about you, which is much stronger than what you can create in other organizations. Let's say, for example, in insurance industry, you have if it you are making annual payment, you have just one touch point, and that too just payment, no behavior input at all. But here you can get lot of behavioral input about the person very easily. So credit card data is a gold mine, but you must know how to get value out of that data. And that is actually challenging portion. What is the challenge? Actually, if you look at, there are three challenges. First of all, getting data itself is difficult. Data might be spread across tables, spread across databases. Sometimes data needs to be combined. For example, if you have transaction level data, you need to combine them to get aggregate data so that you know that okay, what is the total spend of the customer. Sometimes you need to do certain other logic, like you have to add something, minus something, so that you can get to the balance. So getting the data analysis is another ball game, because for that you need to know how to read the data, how to clean data, how to make cross tabs so that you can do analysis and all those things. And machine learning is third portion, which is even more difficult because it requires you a much better understanding of statistics, machine learning, and all those things, and also the industrial practices so that you can develop the model. So these are the three major challenges. And in our data strategy, we'll talk about all three one by one. So let's first understand who we are. At Pro Data Science, we bring 6 decades of experience in credit card analysis, and we have first hand experience in risk analytics, collections analytics, marketing analytics, and so on. Overall, we have been on the forefront of data science delivery in these years, and we know what is generally required for taking decisions. And this has helped us to drive a culture where data was getting used for taking decisions. So essentially, we created a data driven culture. This is a little detail about us. You can take a pause and you can read about us. These are chronological detail about us so that you know what we have done. Or you can also visit our website. On this website, in leadership team, we have given detail. We have given detail about us, where we have worked, and also it will take you to the LinkedIn everywhere so that you could know what kind of thing we are doing, what kind of post we are providing, and everything. Coming back to the fact that we have spent 6 decades and we have been forefront of these analytics in credit card, we primarily know what is required and what does couch pain. The common pain points in credit card is that you have data silos and sometimes inconsistency. Some team is using one definition, another team is using another definition. That leads to confusion. Secondly, there is lack of standardization. Sometimes variable itself is changing between different teams. And even a business user is knowing exactly what he or she is looking at, there is too much reliance on data science team because most of the time business users do not know how to get the data, how to combine and do everything. And that's why there is a limited self service. Additionally, most often than not, For data science teams also, it's a tedious data extraction process, cleaning process, and feature engineering, which makes it repetitive, boring, error prone, and all those things. Also, the iteration cycle is slow because it's a time consuming, it's a manual job, it's a slow iteration. And sometimes there is scalability issue also. You are working on machine, sometimes you're working on Excel and it cannot handle the data and you are struggling. So these are the common issue that people face. What is the way out? That's the common issue, but what is the way out? What you need to understand that if you want to create a data driven culture, there has to be data available without confusion, without any kind of inaccuracy easily. For that, you need to provide streamlined data so that data is available. You need to streamline analytics with GUI so that people can analyze these data, get those data comfortably. And if needed, model building can happen pretty comfortably on these data. If these three things are done, it will lead to smart decisioning. In text, you want to create data driven culture, you have to make availability of accurate data at required time when people are looking at and at required level. It should not mean that only a particular class of people have access. Everybody who is taking decisions should have access to the data that he or she requires. Secondly, it has to be domain specific. What you need to understand, otherwise you'll be dead. There are so many tables, so many fields that you'll be dead. So it has to be carefully curated so that it can do the job of Pareto, where few variables means lot of things, and which I'll talk about in the next slide. And you are going to empower user. After all, what you are making sure that people get can become more efficient and more accurate without writing a single line of code and without any confusion. For that, the first thing that we need is that you need to provide required data for analysis at fingertip. What you need to understand, often there are thousands of tables across databases, and each table might have 5 to 100 fields, which mean hundreds of fields, which might mean 5,000, 6,000, 20,000 fields. Because these data are spread across databases, and you must know the logic that okay, how to get retail spend, because in the system it is not retail spend, it is probably written in transaction code. How to get revolver, for that you need to understand what defines that okay, this guy is a revolver, and how do you get that okay, this guy is paying interest so he's a revolver. So you need to know the logic and you must be able to convert that logic into code so that you can go get those flags. But the good news is that all fields are not equally important. We have carefully gone through our memory lane and come up with a list of approximately 200 fields by which we believe that 95% of the requirement of data analysis, what we do in the business, can be achieved just by those 200 fields. Another 250 fields can cover, in fact, even those rare requirements which happens across the year. But what you need to understand, it's not following the Pareto. For getting another 2%, you need to have much larger pool of fields. And for that, we are not recommending those fields because it's better to take that as a ad hoc field as and when needed because these are not required repeatedly. But how will you create those infrastructure by which those 100 fields by which people can really work over time? So let me talk of the basic of that, how we are going to create. We essentially want to create a single source by which you can get data for BI. For BI, most often than not, you get cubical data by which slice and dice can happen, and people can reach up to up to at least 4 5 levels on their own without writing a single line of code. So, from the single source, you can get data for BI, you can get data for machine learning, as well as you can get data for machine learning. And how it will possible? It is possible if you create data which is based on the concept of 3C, which is capacity, collateral, and character. At the same time, what you have to ensure that these data should be sufficient to capture the behavior, but should be limited. It should not be too much that you are dead with the number of variables. So essentially, we plan to provide you curated list of variables, which obviously will be open for discussion if any requirement comes. But we are pretty sure that we are covering something which is limited, but still covers all the three C, which is character, willingness to pay, capacity, ability to pay, and collateral, what can be taken in case of default. So, what we are recommending? We are recommending a consumption ready data level so that the data layer is containing data which is consumption ready for end user. What you need to understand, end user understands data which are business names like retail spend, revolver flag, retail balance, delinquency status. So we have to give the final variable in those names, not like raw variables. So these are what I'm talking here, that we are talking of data which has been extracted from multiple sources but collated at one place. Also, these are derived field. Here you are not applying further logic of how to get the revolver flag. You are getting the revolver flag based on the definition which is consistent across different verticals and which are standardized and categorized so that you can run analysis. It should not happen that you have 1000 distinct value and you are dead with the data. So these are the three things that we are talking. But to make sure that you get such data repeatedly, there are many aspects that you need to take care. So we have to establish practices of data preparation. And here we are talking of many things. For example, we want to create system by which parallel or sequential execution of query can happen. Secondly, the system should be intelligent one. If you are supposed to run query 1, 2, 3, and then start 4, and for any reason server restarts, it should not start with first, it should start with fourth, so that you are not wasting time. Secondly, we are talking of intelligent alert. The system will map several fields on categorization and everything. And if it finds new intent or undefined stuff, it should send an alert so that the data that resides in the system is useful and not getting contaminated over time. To achieve that, we will need to also create future ready code. So, what is future ready code? We are talking of kind of programs where you're not making changes in the code when, let's say, a new product or new transaction code is added. We want to create those kind of programs which creates program on the fly. So essentially these are another function which is writing function or writing SQL on the fly so that you are not making those changes in the code manually. Additionally, we are talking that we will create detailed log of execution for analysis and future reference purpose so that you also get to know that how it is working. And we will recommend a practice of master level data standardization so that there is a consistent definition of transaction detail, transaction code, logo, whatever it defines the product across level. That will help people and that will be used for dynamic program generation. So we want to establish practices of data preparation so that the future data is reliable. And towards the end, we also plan to provide a table of time execution by process so that if any time anything is taking too much of time, or let's say taking too much of time in data preparation, we know which process is taking how much time and which one requires tweaking so that process stays lean over time. If we establish these data preparation practices, what it is going to do that it is going to create monthly data files easily. But then we also need a method by which end user can get data for any month and any field by just selection. So essentially no coding at all. You are just clicking the checkbox and those data is coming. You are selecting year and month and the data is coming from a particular file without writing a single line of code. If you have any external file, let's say a list of accounts or list of say source code on which you want to do analysis, you should be able to consume that easily without any intervention required from IT or anyone. So that's the another easy part that we are looking at. And by GUI only, you should be able to filter the data. If you're looking at, let's say, just Mumbai And when in Mumbai, only those guys who are, let's say, 26 to 36, all these things should be possible by just click of button without coding. You want to create cross tab charts, or you want to create bins of, let's say, retail spend 5,000, 10,000, 15,000, or you want to combine some products and you want to see it against some other products. All those things should be possible without writing a single line of code. And here we plan to provide Extreme ML or Insta Visualizer, which can do the job. Insta Visualizer is just a subset of a stripped down version of Extreme ML, which will definitely be able to do all these things. However, when it will come to model development, you will have to create data which is running across months. Many times you aggregate 6 months of data, and sometimes you also need some external data. So all those things should be very much possible. And again, this should be possible through GUI. The reason that you have people coming, going, you must have possibility by which any new person just clicks few buttons on some website and the website creates data. What will it mean? That there is a consistent method by which you are preparing data and creating derived field. How are you treating derived null treatment and everything? There is a consistent practice. And also after that, you can generate efficient model with statistical rigor and documentation using extreme ML. Here again, we plan to provide those fields which we have seen over time that comes significant and that makes an impact. So you have limited set of variables and also a pre-written logic by which we know these are the derived field which are coming important, and that can come as a baseline for you. If you want to develop anything, you get the data very easily without any mistake. And any person, any new hire, or any person coming from other vertical can easily pick up the practice and can do the job. You can contact us, you can seek more clarification, you can seek a demo from us, and we can show you everything that we mean here. Thank you so much for watching.